Good morning, Madam President and Senators. Today our focus is on the importance of vision casting. Leaders cast visions on the proposed way forward for their team or nation. It is imperative that they cultivate strategies to navigate their team so that the vision can be developed and implemented. Proverbs 16:3 states, "Commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed." John Scully said, "The future belongs to those who see possibilities before they become obvious." But this can also be challenging, as you, the leader, must so share the vision that would result in others catching it and seeing how they fit in the big picture. Habakkuk 2:2 states, "Write a vision, make it plain, upon a tablet, so that a runner can read it." Senators, as you move forward over the next few days, I want to encourage you, firstly, to ask God to guide you, in your decisions and vision casting for our nation. Your plans and decisions will have far-reaching and at times life-altering effects for some persons. Depend on Him to guide you. Secondly, always keep before you that there are many who cannot stand up or speak for themselves. And so make sure that you represent them well and all Bahamians and all who reside in our beloved country. Thirdly, vision casting also requires that each leader identifies their role and responsibility to ensure that the best outcomes result. Luke 12:48 states, "To whom much is given, much is required." And fourthly, remember that you have been appointed to be a policy shaper and leader for the future and further development of our beloved country. This should encourage you to look with the eyes of vision, to discern the areas that need altering and adjustment, and having the wisdom to know how to retain foundational principles and landmarks. And so, Senators, as you journey over the next few days in this time of vision casting for the future of our nation, know that many will be looking to you for leadership and direction. Do your part to lead and guide them well. Proverbs 29:18 states, "Where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. But he," and I add she, "that keepeth the law, happy is that person." Phil Pringle stated, "The leader lives the dream, breathes the vision, sleeps the mission, and eats the goals every day." Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for our senators, whom you have allowed to serve our country in this season. As they debate, vision cast, and determine future laws and policies for our nation, be near and dear to them. Reveal to them how to navigate and to set the course for our country for the future, and help them to discern their role as nation builders and policymakers. Give them stamina, strength, and fortitude for the days ahead, and bless and keep them and our beloved country. In the precious name of Jesus Christ, amen. Please join in the prayer for our Lord. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, Senators. Order of business for Monday, the 23rd of June, 2025. Adoption of minutes. The Chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Alkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. Madam President, I move that the minutes for the session of the Senate held on Monday, the 2nd of June, 2025 be adopted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the Senate session held on Monday, the 2nd of June, 2025 be adopted. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Minutes of the 2nd of June, 2025 are hereby adopted. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign. Swearing in of new senators. Communication by the President. With a grateful heart, the Chair extends gratitude to our devoted chaplain, Reverend Carla Culmer, for your meditation today on vision casting. On today, the Senate commences debate on the all-important 2025-2026 budget debate under the theme Expanding Opportunities Island by Island. While Senators robustly debate this all-important budget, it is critically important to bear in mind that the 2025 budget debate is not about members appointed to this upper chamber, but more important, it is about the Bahamian people that have given us the opportunity to serve and occupy these seats in the upper chamber. As you all are well aware, the 2025-2026 budget directly impacts projects, supplies, accommodations, and more importantly, salaries of civil servants, inclusive of nurses, doctors, custodians, teachers, drivers, police officers, members of the Defense Force, and the list goes on. Accordingly, there is an expectation that this budget will be passed by the upper chamber in a timely manner. Towards this end, the Chair intends to strictly enforce the Senate rules for the duration of this debate. I am aware that the thrust of the debate will become intense and robust. I hereby urge you, Senators, to remain parliamentary, honorable, and uphold the true sentiments of the upper chamber. Please be reminded that the Chair intends to fully utilize our Senate rules to ensure that the debate is governed in the appropriate manner and that best practices are adhered to. School is now closed for the summer holiday. The Chair extends congratulations to all students who have stayed the course, who have leveled up, and have graduated. You have my best wishes for continued success. Our children are at home, our nation's prime resource and precious future. I once again urge parents, grandparents, guardians to pay careful attention to your children's whereabouts and safety, and who is looking after them while you're at work. Ensure that you communicate with your children and encourage them to converse with you about their day and the activities that they are involved with. Teach them once again what is good touching, what is bad touching, and what to do when someone touches them in an inappropriate manner. Teach our innocent children again of the dangers of social media and chatting with persons unknown to them. Teach them again to have boundaries. Teach them again to not allow anyone to put them down or make them feel inferior. Teach them again to flee from danger. Teach them again to say no to drugs. Teach them again to stand up to the bully and to tell someone when they feel uncomfortable. Teach them again to be kind and courteous and thoughtful. Always remind them that you are simply a phone call away and that you're never, ever too busy to talk to them. And ensure that you, as parents, ensure that you stay abreast of their emotional and mental health and take advantage of the various summer activities, such as Vacation Bible School, constituency programs or urban renewal programs. I also encourage the village to be on full alert, and if you see something, say something. As the good book reminds us, be your brother's keeper. Let us continue to work together, be vigilant, and consistently recommit to a culture of care where the protection of our most precious resource is our main focus, which stimulates the heart of our collective conscience. On behalf of the Senate body, the Chair extends deepest condolences to all of the family members who have lost loved ones, to the family members of the former Parliamentary Secretary and Ambassador Joshua Sayers, Stalwart Councillor Charles Miller of South Andrews, Patrona Angela Longley, Joanne Johnson, and Ray DeVoe, it is my prayer that you are granted the strength to progress through your loss. The Chair is also deeply saddened by the death of Mr. Lennox Williams. I met Mr. Williams in 2021, shortly after the opening of Parliament. From the time of meeting him, he remained the consummate professional, polite, helpful, driven, respectful, and determined to resolve any issues that one may encounter. I vividly recall when he could not locate a vehicle for me. He said to Madam President that the only car I have available is my government vehicle. I said to him, Mr. Williams, I can't take your vehicle. And his response was, I can't have my president without a vehicle. He told me that I am a man and I'll be just fine. He insisted on lending me his vehicle, and reluctantly I accepted the offer and later found out that it was a fully electric car. Once again, I became very apprehensive. He met me at my homestead in Chippenham and proceeded with a tutorial and reassured me that I will be fine. Over the weekend, I visited his mother, Mrs. Mary Stovall, and brother Leroy Stovall at their homestead, and they were comforted with the many stories of his kindness, love, humility, and his willingness to go the extra mile for anyone. Mr. Williams' dedication to the Cabinet Office, the police force, and the Anglican Men Association leave this Bahamas in a better place. It is tragic that such an exceptional young man was taken from us. However, he went down, still trying to leave the Bahamas in a safer place. His bravery and courage were exceptional. On behalf of the Senate body, the Chair extends sincere condolences to his mother, Mary Stovall, his children, siblings, and wider family. I now invite all of you, senators, as well as members of the gallery, to pause for a moment of silence in the memory of Mr. Lennox Stovall. May his soul rest in peace and rise in glory. On a happy note, I am pleased that the Senate Gallery, we have with us today many persons. And I would like to begin with recognizing the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Mrs. King Rowe. In addition to Mrs. King Rowe, we also have with us Stalwart Councillor, Mr. Gary Lord Roll. He's not here? I guess he's on his way, but we recognize him. Mr. Gary Lord Roll, who hails all the way from Exuma. Okay. Mrs. Brandis Duncanson, Director of Financial Services. Angelique McKay, Head of the Department of the Orange Economy Unit with the Ministry of Economic Affairs. And did I omit anyone else from the Ministry of Economic Affairs? Okay. And it is also a pleasure for the, thank you for coming. It is also a pleasure for the chair to welcome the new leadership team of the Progressive Liberal Party Women's Branch Association. Firstly, I would like to extend a warm welcome to the chairwoman, Mrs. Calverna Small. And as I said in my keynote address at a church a few weeks ago, I reminded the audience there that with the death of former Senator Rodney Monca, Mrs. Calverna Small can now be dubbed the leader of the women there. And also with us is the first vice chair, Ms. Debbie Lightburn. Ms. Antia Roll Taylor, secretary. Ms. Takia Ramings, assistant secretary. Ms. Laurie Lightfoot, treasurer. Ms. Carla Stubbs, assistant treasurer. Ms. Jacqueline Bryce, public relations officer. Ms. Kayla Cooper, sergeant at arms. Ms. Melissa Mackey, youth officer. Ms. Claudel Evans, NGC representative. Mrs. Karen Kiki Varakis Ferguson, executive member. Ms. Siobhan Johnson, executive member. Ms. Karen McKinney, executive member. Ms. Brenda Lee Adderley, executive member. Ms. Laverne Archer Crawley, executive member. And Ms. Astrid Bodie, executive member. Did I miss anyone? Pardon? Is that the chaplain? Waterland Archer? And our chaplain, Ms. Dorothy Newbold. And just could you all please stand? I just want all of you to stand together, please. And who else? Aretha Stubbs. Aretha Stubbs? Apologies, Aretha. Okay, can you all just please stand together? I thank you all for coming, and it's always a pleasure to receive members in the gallery, especially on a day like today when we start the budget debate. When the gallery is full, my senators always behave better, and I'm expecting them to have their best deportment today. And thank you all for coming. I'd like for you to also, when you get a minute, to replay the words of the chaplain on leadership casting. I felt that she just not spoke to the senators today, but also to your leadership. May God continue to bless you and keep you, and may you have an unforgettable legacy. God bless you all. May God bless. May God bless you all who are present, and I trust I did not omit anyone else from the gallery before I end my president's communication. Is everyone accounted for? Great. May God bless each and every one of you, and may God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I hereby table the President's communication. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly.
Message from the House of Assembly.
Laying of, I'm sorry. Okay.
Bahamas, number 41. Message to the Honorable, the President, and Honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bills and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st July 2025 and ending 30th June 2026. A bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $376,325,253 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending 30th June 2026. A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act. A bill for an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act, Chapter 375. A bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act. A bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act. A bill for an act to amend the Value-Added Tax Act. A bill for an act to amend the Excise Act. A bill for an act to amend the Tariff Act. A bill for an act to amend the Tax Appeal Commission Act. A bill for an act to amend the Public Finance Management Act. A bill for an act to establish a fund for the deposit of revenue derived from environmental health services, fees, levies, and for connected purposes. A bill for an act to amend the International Persons Landholding Act. A bill for an act to establish a business development incentives program to provide financial incentives to eligible licensees for the purposes of encouraging and supporting investment activities that contribute to the economic well-being of the Bahamas, to enhance the global competitiveness of the Bahamas as a business hub and a source of goods and services, and for connected purposes. A bill for an act to amend the Statute of Frauds Act. A bill for an act to amend the Immigration Act. A bill for an act to amend the Housing Act. A bill for an act to amend the Industries Encouragement Act. A bill for an act to amend the Conveyancing and Law of Property Act. A bill for an act to amend the Property, Execution of Deeds and Documents Act. A bill for an act to amend the Environmental Health Services Act. A bill for an act to amend the Boat Registration Act. A bill for an act to amend the Commercial Recreational Watercraft Act. A bill for an act to amend the Harbor Dues Act. A bill for an act to amend the Port Authorities Act. A bill for an act to amend the Water Skiing and Motorboat Control Act. A bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act. A bill for an act to establish a maritime revenue unit to provide for the collection of fees and revenue, to enhance multidisciplinary coordination and for connected purposes. A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st July 2024 and ending 30th June 2025. A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st July 2024 and ending 30th June 2025. House of Assembly, Nassau, 19th June 2025. Sylvanus Petty, Deputy Speaker. Fourth Speaker.
Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following orders: the electricity tariff rate for electricity services order 2025 and the miscellaneous written law rectification number 2 order 2025.
Order document be brought up. Order the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following rules: the Industrial Relations Tribunal, the Industrial Relations Tribunal Procedure Rules 2025, and the Boat Registration Yacht Amendment Rules 2025.
Order documents be brought up. Order documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following regulations. The Customs Management Amendment Number 2 Regulations 2025, the Boat Registration Fixed Penalty Amendment Regulations 2025, the Commercial Recreational Watercraft Fixed Penalty Amendment Regulations 2025, and the Price Control General Amendment Number 5 Regulations 2025.
Order documents be brought up. Order documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following: the Public Holidays Whit Monday 2025 Opening of Shops Notice 2025, and the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2027, 2030, 2032, 2034, 2044, and 2054 Directions 2025.
Order documents be brought up. Order documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following reports: the Fiscal Strategy Report 2025 and the supplementary 2024-2025 supplementary budget draft estimates of revenue and expenditure.
Order documents be brought up. Order documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
And none at this time, Madam President.
Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answers to questions. Presentations of petitions. Appointment of select committees. Reports of select committees. First reading of bills. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for first time a bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act.
It's been moved and seconded that the following document be read for a first time and then tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act. As many are in favor, say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act.
For the first reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for a first time a bill for an act to establish a maritime revenue unit to provide for the collection of fees and revenue to enhance multidisciplinary coordination and for connected purposes.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to establish a maritime revenue unit to provide for the collection of fees and revenue to enhance multidisciplinary coordination and for connected purposes. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act to establish a maritime revenue unit to provide for the collection of fees and revenue to enhance multidisciplinary coordination and for connected purposes.
For the first reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for first time a bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st July 2024 and ending 30th of June 2025.
is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act for the appropriate of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing the 1st of July 2024 and ending the 3rd of June 2025. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st of July 2024 and ending the 30th of June 2025.
For the first reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for first time the bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money. A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st July 2024 and ending 30th of June 2025. This is the Supplementary Appropriation Capital Development 2024-2025 bill.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing the 1st of July 2024 and ending the 30th of June 2025. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st of July 2024 and ending the 30th of June 2025.
For the first reading of bills.
And none at this time, Madam President.
Second reading and committal of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, at this stage, before I move into the debate, we will recall that there were several bills that were read for first time and are on the agenda. There were amendments to those bills in that other place. And so what we are seeking to do is to withdraw those bills that were laid on first reading here in the House and replace them with the bills that incorporate the amendments that were made in the Honorable House of Assembly. And so, Madam President, with the concurrence of the side opposite, I would move that we withdraw and replace the Value-Added Tax Amendment Number 2 Bill 2025, the Business License Amendment Number 2 Bill 2025, the Immigration Amendment Bill 2025, the Port Authorities Amendment Bill 2025, the Housing Amendment Bill 2025, the Boat Registration Amendment Bill 2025, the Stamp Amendment Number 2 Bill 2025, and the Conveyancing and Law of Property Amendment Bill 2025. These bills that we are replacing, as I said, Madam President, incorporate the amendments that were made in that other place. With the concurrence of the other side, we seek to withdraw and replace.
Thank you, Senator Halkitis. Senator Darren Henfield?
We have no
I think you're-
objections.
Thank you, Senator Henfield. Senator Halkitis, there's no objections from the
Thank
opposition.
you very much, Madam
Yeah.
President, and we would request that the all members, particularly those on the other side, receive a copy of the amended bills as soon as possible so that they may be able to inform themselves.
Thank you, Minister Halkitis. Request is hereby granted.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, it's an honor to open this debate. It is, for me, the 19th full budget debate that I have had the honor of participating in in one role or the other. Madam President, thank you very much. Madam President. And so, as I rise to move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st of July 2025 and ending 30th of June 2026. As I said, Madam President, this is my 19th full budget debate, not counting supplementary debates or mid-year budget debates. I have done so in the role of Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, in the role of Senator on that side, sitting on that side of the table, Minister of State for Finance in that other place, and now Minister of Economic Affairs, and sitting once again in this place, Madam President. And I say it's an honor and it's a privilege because not many Bahamians get to serve in this capacity, being able to serve their fellow Bahamians at such a high level. And it's an honor for me. I thank God for giving me the strength and guiding me over and protecting me over the years as I served in public life. I want to also acknowledge my family, particularly my wife Tracy, who has put up with me for 24 years. Many times when public duties took away from family, what should rightly be family time, without complaint. And so I thank her for standing by me, my two wonderful children, in whom I am well pleased, all of who have supported me over these many years. I want to also take this opportunity before I begin, Madam President. You know, when we look back, the beginning, when I entered this political arena back in the year 2000, and I had people who would walk the streets with me, people like Elton Williamson, Brandon Brennan, Frank Williams. Sometimes it was only the two of us, probably looking like lost souls, just, you know. But though many, many others over the years, but I speak about those who in the early days, who believed in me. I still have a team today. Some of the faces have changed. Many of the faces have changed. I want to thank them for their belief, Madam President. Also to recognize my mother, who was, of course, brought me into this world and has supported me fully. I was in church yesterday at Holy Spirit celebrating the 27th anniversary of the Champagne 17 line of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And as we sat in the pew listening to Father Walking speak, and he said, given the announcements, he says, you know, your grandma used to say, don't make me shame. And that has always been one of my guiding principles, Madam President. You know, you can't make your mother shame as you serve. And so I thank her for her support. And all of those, I want to recognize the Permanent Secretary, the Director of Financial Services, the Director of the Orange Economy, Ms. Thompson, Ms. Wash, and all others from the ministry. And I want to join you in welcoming the Women's Branch. I congratulate the new administration, and I wish them well, and just encourage them to keep on keeping on. Welcome. Madam President, as I said, it's a tremendous honor for me to stand here and lead off this debate on this 2025-2026 budget. Madam President, the Davis administration is committed to building a better Bahamas by expanding opportunities for everyone. This historic budget before us, featuring a projected overall budgetary surplus, also features many first-time initiatives, expansion of innovations we've launched over the past 3.5 years, and targeted investments to empower our people. We are investing in key programs and empowering people without austerity measures. That means cutting back or harsh budget cuts. And no, Madam President, we did not try to tax our way into prosperity. Instead, we are pursuing tax cuts to promote consumer spending during this time of economic growth. We are ensuring tax fairness, creating a system of enforcement and collection where everyone, including and especially the wealthy and powerful and million-dollar corporations, multi-million-dollar and multi-billion-dollar corporations, pay their fair share. Madam President, this budget is a testament to the vision of our blueprint for change. We have delivered on many of our promises, and we are intent on delivering on many more while tackling new challenges and taking this nation towards widespread, sustainable growth and prosperity for years to come. Madam President, as I said, in this budget, the Bahamas projects its first budgetary surplus with a projected surplus of $75 million. Madam President, much ado has been made about this surplus, and we've seen the memes. But what does it mean, really? What does it mean? Simply put, Madam President, it means that the government is projecting that in the upcoming year, 2025-2026, the government will collect sufficient revenue to adequately fund the programs that the government has to fund and still have $75 million left over. So we're collecting enough money to do what you have to do and have funds left over. And where does that 75? What do we do with that $75 million, Madam President? We see in the budget, in the estimates of revenue and expenditure, this year, the debt of the Bahamas stood at $11.461 billion. Next year, the debt is projected to be $11.386 billion, a debt reduction of $75 million. So that surplus goes directly to reducing the debt of the government of the Bahamas. Again, why is this important, Madam President? You look at interest payments, the amount of money that the government, people of the Bahamas have to pay just on the interest on the debt. In 2017, that number was $273 million. In 2025, that number is expected to be $668 million. 2026 goes down to 602, and by 2027 we anticipate 565 million on interest. And so you see the trend going downwards. Madam President, it's a debate, but I didn't choose 2017 for any particular reason. It's just that I wanted to give us a few years and to demonstrate that this goes across administrations. So from 273 million, more than double in less than 10 years. It's unsustainable because that means that is money that we're paying on interest that could be more properly invested in our people. And so surplus is a big deal because we can see the debt of the country begin to come down. And we know that the level of the debt has been something that has been occupying and causing concern to Bahamians for a long time. And so we see that the debt begins to go down. What does a surplus not mean, Madam President? It does not mean that we let our guard down. It does not mean that we abandon fiscal discipline. It does not mean that there's free money or that government can just throw money around. All it means that within its capacity to execute, the government has enough money to fully and adequately fund the works of the government for this year. And so, Madam President, we are looking at total revenue of $3.89 billion, representing 23.6% of GDP. And we have seen our deficit trajectory reduced from 11.9% of GDP in 2020 to a projected surplus of 0.5% in 2025-2026. The primary balance shows a robust surplus of 4.5% of GDP, and our debt to GDP ratio is projected to decline to 68.9% by the fiscal year end, and by down to 61.3% by 2027-2028. So a gradual reduction in our debt to GDP ratio. And all that means, in simple terms, is the amount of debt that you're carrying. The more you carry, the more the interest expense, the more interest you pay, the less money you have for everything else. So bringing the debt down in a gradual but consistent downward pattern, Madam President. And so we're moving from 11.9% in 2020-2021, which was the highest in the history of the country. Today, we've turned that around and into a historic surplus, proving that responsible leadership matters. We inherited a fiscal mess, Madam President, and we are delivering a balanced budget. Real GDP growth of 3.4% was achieved in 2024, and with nominal growth of 3.7%, and our tourism sector reaches historic highs with 11.2 international visitors in 2024. And I would just like to, at this point, again, Madam President, thank all of those hardworking professionals at the Bahamas National Statistical Institute, and I will have a courtesy call with them tomorrow morning. Thank them for their independence and the work that they do. Sometimes I understand that, you know, the figures were called into account, they were called into dispute or called into question at the other place. But the Bahamas National Statistical Institute, even before it was Bahamas National Statistical Institute, when it was the Department of Statistics, they jealously guard their independence. They send, when they go to do a release, as a courtesy, they send it to the ministry at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they say to you, this is the release that we're going to release at 12 o'clock. No. What do you think, or let us have your views?
This is it.
This is our work. This is what we're going to release. As a courtesy, they send it to you, and I guess in case you want to make a statement. And so they're independent. Nobody gets involved in their work and tries to help or tries to fix any numbers. This is an independent body staffed by professional public servants, and we thank them for their work, and we pledge our continued support to them, Madam President. As part of this growth, construction industry expanded by 19%, reflecting increased capital development. And as I was preparing this speech and going over it, Madam President, some words came to mind about a recent political figure in the country. You know, when he talked about construction, he says, you don't have to take my word for it. Look around. Just look around. Some youngsters, they don't remember that. Look around. You know, don't take my word for it. Just look around. Go to any island and look around. That's not my words. I can attribute that to one of our former prime ministers. You know, so I know my friend here is real keen on intellectual property and copyright. Our information, my good friend, the Right Honorable Hubert Alexander Ingram used to like to say, just look around. Don't take my word for it, look around. And I can adopt those words for the current situation. Our information and communication sector rebounded with 21.5% growth. Agriculture, forestry, and fishing industries grew by 21% through targeted government investment. Our international standing and credit rating are much improved over the last 4 years, Madam President. Fitch Rating Services assigned our inaugural BB- rating with a stable outlook, while Moody's upgraded our outlook from stable to positive for the first time in 17 years. We also successfully returned to the international bond markets with a $1.06 billion bond offering at 8.25% interest. And why is this important, Madam President? Of course, the bulk of the offering was used to pay off existing debt. Why is this important? It's important because it demonstrates that the Bahamas can go to the international markets, raise funds in good size, on good terms, and have demand. Investor demand was nearly 4 times the amount offered, demonstrating market confidence. And so I had the opportunity to participate in the roadshow to promote the bond issuance, Madam President, and I can say this. When you go on those road shows, you don't go and say sun, sand, and sea, where the Bahamas, come to us and invest your money because we're a nice place to be. You sit with analysts whose job it is 24/7 to analyze the prospects, the history, the financial strength, what they anticipate to be the financial strength of companies, and make investment decisions on behalf of their clients. And so, to be able to go to market, and they grill you, and they ask you all manner of questions, and you have to defend it. There's no fluff, strictly business. And so to be able to go to market with that size, have invested demand nearly 4 times the offered amount, demonstrates extreme market confidence. In addition, Madam President, S&P maintains our B+ credit rating with a stable outlook, and it is our view that we should see those credit ratings improve, Madam President. And I'll speak later about our strategy actually for the improvement of our credit rating. But overall, Madam President, if we were to encapsulate what the budget does, it recognizes that education is a foundation to sustainable empowerment of our people. It is the starting point, which is why we are pursuing a number of major initiatives and reforms. Nearly 1 million free breakfasts have been served to school children nationwide, and the school breakfast program expansion will reach every government primary school this year. Children are no longer starting their days hungry. School attendance rates exceed 95% through comprehensive outreach programs. We are expanding high-speed internet connectivity installed at remote Family Island schools. New curriculum implementation features robotics, financial literacy, and Bahamian-authored history books, among other new exciting developments. In the area of labor force and workforce development and skills training, our track record for public servants and Bahamian workers, Madam President, is nothing short of stellar, due to the fantastic work by the Minister of Labor, the Honorable Pia Glover-Roll, and her team. Over 2,000 young people under 35 have joined the public service since September 2021. 56 industrial agreements have been signed, and that exceeds any administration in modern history. These agreements delivered salary increases and benefits improvements for tens of thousands of private and public sector workers. Over 3,500 public servants received promotions with enhanced career advancement opportunities. The 700 PSPEP, or formerly known as the 52-week program workers, gained official appointment to permanent position, and the minimum wage increase benefited over 2,400 workers in the public service, not to mention those in the private sector, Madam President. And these are not mere numbers. These are actual people that we're speaking about, whose lives have been improved by the programs of this government. In the area of digital learning and innovation, Madam President, the Upskill Bahamas program launch provides free digital career certification opportunities for Bahamians at all stages of their career, and in this budget, we've doubled the allocation for the Upskill Bahamas program. Digital technologies integration modernizes government operations, Madam President, and we are committed to the continued rollout of our digitization program through e-government, the Oracle program that is being rolled out in conjunction with the Ministry of Public Service and the Ministry of Finance, and the area of document digitalization have all seen major progress. In terms of healthcare system modernization, Madam President, the Princess Margaret Hospital, we're happy to see the team there perform our first live donor kidney transplant. Very critical given the high rates of kidney disease. Of course, that is one intervention, and we continue to put resources into prevention and positive lifestyle changes. The Minister of Health spoke of the laboratory and diagnostic service expansion across our family islands. Renovation of clinics and medical equipment procurement are advancing nationwide. Dozens of clinics renovated, and I'm very happy to be able to thank the Minister of Health, the Honorable Dr. Michael Darville, for his work in having us now see the commencement of the construction of the Coconut Grove Advanced Health Center. I also thank my cabinet colleague, the Minister of Education, who along with me tag-teamed almost every week on Dr. Darville to make sure that when he was talking about clinics in Mangrove Key, Palmetto Point, and other places, Steventon, etc., that Coconut Grove Clinic was counted amongst that number. Because, Madam President, you know, I was in a certain neighborhood on the weekend and just happened to speaking with a gentleman, and he was saying, you know, I see what's happening out there, and then he started to talk about the history of the clinic and how there was always one in Coconut Grove for many, many years, and how happy he was that we're moving from the small facility that was there that is no longer in use to a modern facility that is underway. And I understand that the construction period is 15 months, and so it's already coming out of the ground, and we should see construction accelerate. And so again, when you speak to people, Madam President, it's not just a facility, you know, because you hear people say, well, we used to go to this one, and now we have to go up there, and we don't know all those people around it. You know, this is like our neighborhood community clinic. We know these people. When we go up there, we feel a bit, if they say go this way or go to this next, and we feel a little bit not at home. So we're very, very happy to have this done, Madam President. We are increasing allocations in this budget for the Catastrophic Healthcare Services Fund, and that deals with individuals who need to have emergency interventions, particularly surgical interventions and perhaps medical as well. And we're increasing the budget from 10 million to 12 million. But since 2023, 2024, we've increased the spending in that area by $7.1 million, Madam President, because many people have these emergency interventions that they need to have, they don't have the money to do it. We continue to look at the further development of geriatric care, Madam President, and I'm sure when my colleague from Grand Bahama speaks, he'll speak about the development and the Freeport Hospital, where phase 1 is scheduled to be completed by the end of this year. In the area of social services, Madam President, over 40,000 Bahamians received direct social service assistance, including food, rent, and utilities support in the past year, and they're using digital application systems to make application for those services easier. This year, Madam President, for the first time I am advised in over a decade, the annual social services report was published. In terms of, again, in health, there are efforts to improve access to healthcare in the family islands, including something as simple, we might think here in New Providence, as blood testing capabilities, where these capabilities are now being established in areas like San Salvador and other remote locations, and training continues for midwives and nurses training, and the expansion of mental health mental health services, including specialized program development, Madam President. And so you see programs from education to health social services to labor, investing in our people. Madam President, the Progressive Liberal Party has spearheaded unprecedented investments in infrastructure throughout our family islands. Major aviation infrastructure development programs spans Exuma, Cat Island, Eleuthera. The Long Island Road Improvement Project receives a $22 million investment, Madam President, and we saw the signing of the Long Island Airport contract, which was signed last week, Madam President, that brings relief after many, many years. Successive administrations.
Say Long Island switching.
Many, many years of waiting, Madam President, and we see it being done, Madam President, and it is appreciated.
Yield not to temptation.
And it is appreciated, Madam President.
Senators, yield not to temptation. A senator is speaking. Thank you.
Madam President, and our infrastructure plan calls for 14 airports in Family Islands to be upgraded, and several of those are currently underway. Yes. Madam President, energy sector transformation. We know the story of BPL and the legacy debt of $500 million. We continue a comprehensive reform as we enter a new era of energy in the Bahamas. Utility scale solar power will be integrated into our national grid for the first time. Family Island hybrid microgrids will incorporate solar power and natural gas on every major island. The importance of that is, Madam President, it reduces the cost. We expect to surpass global standards for renewable energy by 2030. And we are proud to partner exclusively with Bahamian companies to develop our energy future with solar and mixed fuel microgrids in New Providence and almost every family island. And why is this important, Madam President? You know, we left, probably all left work on Friday. Over the weekend, we see the possibility for severe upheaval in the Middle East that could severely impact oil trading and the provision of oil. And what does that mean to us? Higher gas prices, higher diesel prices, higher cost of energy. And so the more quickly we can move to integration of more renewable energy in our power generation, the better it is for us. The less concerned, of course, it'll be some time before we can consider total elimination, but when you have to sit on pins and needles, wondering what's going to happen, how will that impact us? How will that impact our energy bill? And we have sunshine that is free. It's just up to us to incorporate it into our energy. And we'll speak more of challenges a little later on, Madam President. But what we always speak when we talk about the prospects for the Bahamas and our projections, we always say that we are cautiously optimistic because we know that as a small island, a nation with an open economy, we are so susceptible to the very same geopolitical events that we see going on right now. And so if we can accelerate, I'm happy to see the speed in which this transformation is being undertaken. Madam President, in terms of water, another critical necessity, the Joe Farrington Road Water Project and the Gladstone Road Wastewater Treatment Plant continue to advance, and we are seeing water systems upgrades progress in Exuma, South Andros, North Acklands, and the Water Corporation is implementing more digital tools to combat the whole issue of what they call non-revenue water, water that is somehow disappears out of the system. Madam President, in this budget, the Progressive Liberal Party continues its investment in agriculture and food security initiatives. We are creating 5 hydroponic farms, expanding poultry and piggery production. The 5 hydroponic farm construction spans New Providence, Grand Bahama, Abaco, Andros, and Cat Island, and the National Layer and Piggery Program distributes over 10,000 chicks and 3,000 adult chickens. And in a nod to the need, Madam President, to integrate modern agricultural methods and the scientific approach, the Center for Food and Nutrition Security is being established as a multidisciplinary technical hub that will make us a leader for food and nutrition science in the region. This is a scientific thing. You have to bring more scientific methods in agriculture, Madam President. This year, we're increasing the budget for agriculture from $25 million to $35 million, including, Madam President, a 200% increase in support for farmers. In terms of food security, Madam President, our national trade policy implementation reduces dependence on single market sourcing. And my colleague, Senator Griffin, I'm sure will expand on this. He has taken on this task with extreme alacrity, if I might say so, and passion, and and energy. He's really hit the ground running, working with our trade diversification program, and I will leave that for him to expand on in his presentation, Madam President. Suffice it to say, we are expanding opportunities to increase trade with countries like Canada, Ghana, India, to diversify the source of the things that we import. The more choices we have, the better prices I think will be available to our consumers. And Senator Griffin has taken the lead on that initiative. Madam President, in terms of tourism infrastructure and investment, over the past 2 years, we've secured over $12 billion in foreign direct investment, and we continue to break records in tourism. One of the initiatives in the Ministry of Tourism, Madam President, is pursuing the Emirates Interline Agreement, which is cooperating with the Emirates airline in the Middle East and see how they can work with our Bahamas Air to bring more stopover visitors to our shore. In this budget, Madam President, the National Maritime Academy received expanded funding for Blue Economy career development. The Blue Economy Accelerator has been launched with the Nature Conservancy and the Inter-American Development Bank to support Blue Economy entrepreneurs. The Fly Fishing Grant Initiative supports sustainable tourism enterprise development, and our Maritime Revenue Unit creation within the Ministry of Finance strengthen the oversight of this valuable natural resource that we have. In terms of the creative economy and entrepreneurship, the Crafting Bahamas Creative Entrepreneurs Initiative includes 99 registrants across our archipelago. The Tingzi Marketplace platform supports Family Island entrepreneurs' market access. The Men in Business program approved $566,000 for 64 businesses in the first cohort, and the Be Inspired grant program supports nearly 100 young Bahamians. The Tourism Development Corporation, which we established last year, Madam President, their training and grants enable Bahamian tourism enterprise ownership. And there's also the Tourism Incubation Hub and support for vacation rentals for Bahamians to truly own a piece of the tourism pie. And the Minister of Tourism spoke about the TDC's work in training and giving grants to Bahamian entrepreneurs. And part of their funding comes, Madam President, I must say it, from the $2 levy on tickets traveling in and out of the Bahamas. I heard someone complain, says, you put this fee of $2 on people traveling. Well, I say, you know, well, okay, $2 if the average airline ticket is $300, it's not much. And I don't think $2 can get you a donut in the airport. But when we take all of those $2 together, so it's not a burden. That's what I'm saying. And so when we take all of those $2 together, here we have a source of revenue that we can then pour back into our people, get them into business. Do what we've been talking about for 60 odd years, having more Bahamians own a piece of the tourism economy. And we're doing it through the Tourism Development Corporation, Madam President. We continue to focus on marine conservation and climate action. Our Debt for Nature conservation transaction last year unlocked $124 million in marine conservation funding, and that is real money, Madam President. You will recall that what we did, we paid off a total of $300 million in a combination of bonds and high-interest bank debt. And over the course of this new loan, 15 years, we're saving $124 million. And what that saving is going to every year, it enables the Protected Areas Fund to be able to engage young Bahamians who are trained in marine conservation, environmental science, etc., to protect our natural environment. So again, opportunities for young professionals to become engaged, come home, and make their contribution. This enhanced management covers over 6.8 million hectares of marine protected areas, which represents about 17% of our, what we call the near-shore environment, Madam President, not the ocean, but the near-shore environment. But we have that money annually that goes towards particularly the management, but gives us the opportunity to have Bahamians who study things like marine conservation, to be able to come home and be engaged. We, in some of the legislation that we're doing here, Madam President, we want to discourage harmful marine practices, so we'll have an opportunity to talk about it. So the cruising permit fees, enforcement that we are introducing, jet ski and motorboat operator fines and fixed penalties, address violations, in a sector that needs reform and unfortunately has been surrounded by controversy and bad press over recent years. So we're seeking to put in place a regime to better regulate jet ski and things like individuals who come to the Bahamas and they throw their anchor overboard, and when they pull it, they're damaging the reef, etc. And so we're looking to address those things in the amendments to some of the legislation that we've introduced. We continue to, we also in this budget addressing waste management and climate resilience. Our climate resilience infrastructure is moving forward. We are also, Madam President, addressing amending the Business License Act. And in that act, we are addressing the issue of the proliferation of liquor stores, particularly in certain of our heartland communities. And one of the main features of the legislation is to reinstate the provision where the surrounding community can have input into whether the business should be given a business license to operate in a particular area. And we all know the cries of individuals who have seen this proliferation of stores over years. Madam President, this bill is being seconded by Senator Roel Turner from Grand Bahama, and I'm sure he will expound on the recovery in Grand Bahama, so I would leave that to him. But I just wanted to speak a little more about our debt management strategy. In 2021, we had debt to GDP in the area of 90%, 88.7%. We've seen that reduced to 72% in 2024, Our medium rate target looks to get that back down to 50% by 2030, 2031. I spoke earlier about the importance of getting the debt load down, Madam President. Before Dorian and COVID, it was 59%. After those two devastating events, it had gone up at one point, touching 100%. It's coming back down. We've implemented a strategy where we want to get it to 50% by 2030, 2031. And by bringing that down, we'll reduce interest expense. Interest expense is 20, around 20%, Madam President, of revenue. And we want to get that down to about 10% by 2028, 2029. And so it's a multi-year strategy to gradually bring the debt down, and by doing so, bring down the amount of money that we have to pay in interest. Madam President, I remind everyone, I heard one of my colleagues saying some of the things we had done, and we have able to do that, generate a surplus, and in this term, cut VAT from 12% to 10% on everything, and from 10% to 5% on food, and now medicine and other essentials, Madam President. We are, in this budget, we seek to pass the Business Development Incentives Program Act, which will introduce incentives to encourage local investment, local purchases of goods, local hiring of Bahamians, and that will go along with our Domestic Minimum Top-Up Tax Act, which we passed previously, and we expect that implementation will generate a minimum of $130 million annually, and that $130 million, Madam President, will come from billion-dollar corporations, corporations earning 750 million euros or more. When you change that to dollars, that's about $1 billion. So billion-dollar corporations, who's will be impacted by that, Madam President. And we, as I said, we will pass the Business Development Incentives Program Act to conclude that piece of legislation, or that suite of legislation, Madam President. In terms of, again, revenue enhancement, enhancing our audit coverage. Not many people like to hear about audit and compliance, but it's necessary, particularly with high-risk sectors. And we have put in place, and again, in this budget, we'll see the legislation for it, the cruise destination compliance measures, which include ensuring that the adequate customs duties and VAT are paid. Work permit fees are applied to those who come off the ship to work on private islands, and enforcing VAT enforcement so that they can more fully contribute to the economy. Madam President, I mentioned that, and the Prime Minister mentioned in that other place, that we have a plan to move back to an investment grade credit rating within the next 3 years, or by the end of 3 years. And we have a strategy for that. Part of it was being able to go back to the market and show that we are capable of doing it. It also involves continued growth in the economy. We're targeting GDP per capita of $44,000 by 2029, up from the current $38,000. And we want our revenue to GDP ratio to increase to 25% through comprehensive tax policy. Not increasing taxes, but just being able to grow the economy and better collect what is due. We are trying to continue to pursue lower interest rates, getting lower interest rates on the debt that we have, and being able to smooth out what we call smooth out the maturities, make sure that we don't have these big bond payments or big loans coming due at any one time. Smooth it out as much as possible. Smooth it out as much as possible so it's easier when it comes to refinancing. And as I said, we're forecasting surpluses, so we expect those refinancings to be lower and lower. The efforts over the past years, Madam President, have resulted in international recognition of fiscal discipline and the economic transformation that the Bahamas has undergone. The IMF called our growth remarkable. Credit rating agencies have responded positively, and we have outperformed most international economic projections. Madam President, when we speak about opportunities in this budget, we're not talking strictly about New Providence. We're talking about island by island opportunity. And so family islands that were long neglected, underinvested in, overlooked, and underdeveloped, the Progressive Liberal Party has launched the largest island by island transformation in decades. From clean water in Acklands to tourism hubs in Eleuthera and Exuma, proving no island is left behind. And so from the Providence and Paradise Island, straight on to Grand Bahama, and as I said, my colleague will speak about Grand Bahama, Exuma, which is benefiting from the roadworks investment that is transforming transportation, the airport expansion, the hydroponic farm construction in Exuma, the Bulgari Resort development that projects to create hundreds of jobs. When we move to Eleuthera, again, comprehensive roadworks, airport upgrades, and as well the investment in the healthcare facility. The same in Kidd Island with major roadworks and airport expansion, as well hydroponic farm development, the microgrid, the provision of tractors for farmers, development, improvement in the healthcare sector. Kidd Island is included, Madam President, the same with Abaco, with, again, hydroponic farm construction, investments in the tourism sector, Montage Key and Treasure Key's proposed redevelopment to create employment and business opportunities, water system upgrades in Andros, new sports facilities, the new community clinic in Mangrove Key. When we move down to Acklands, the water system upgrade, and Long Island, we spoke about the $22 million investment in the road program and the $20 million airport runway that will expand air capacity, Madam President, in preparation for an uptick in travel. And many, many people I've spoken to, Madam President, are extremely excited and ready for this to be completed so they can increase their investment. San Salvador, major road rehabilitation on the horizon. Inagua, with the expansion, the modernization of the Defense Force base to strengthen our national security. By no means an exhaustive list, Madam President, but it demonstrates a view of how we have prioritized opportunity and development across our archipelago, island by island. Bimini too. It wasn't exhaustive, but you know, time. Madam President, in terms of financial services, our financial services sector stands as a cornerstone of our economic transformation. The domestic minimum top-up tax represents our commitment to responsible fiscal policy, global compliance, and tax fairness. We are implementing this framework, ensuring it generates significant revenue. And we've done a lot of work on this, working along with the Attorney General, Ministry of Finance, and I wanted to say consultants, but you know, some help that was provided to us by the IMF. He is a consultant, eh? That's a free one. Yeah. But you know, it's the end of many years of consultation and you know, the green paper, public consultation, feedback, engagement with the business community led us to the point where in this process over the next few days, we'll implement the Business Incentives Act, which will complete that suite of legislation. This tax aligns us with global best practices, Madam President, and positions the Bahamas as a jurisdiction that meets its obligations while protecting our economic interests. We are pursuing a focused strategic approach in the area of financial services to the Asian markets, Madam President, that will diversify and hopefully expand our client base beyond our traditional Western Hemisphere relationship. Our Bahamas Asia Landfall Promotion event, scheduled for Hong Kong this November, represents a carefully planned entry into this dynamic economic region. We are collaborating with key stakeholders to ensure market success, recognizing the significant engagement we have already achieved from Asian high net worth individuals. This intelligence-guided approach, informed by comprehensive stakeholder feedback, will establish the Bahamas as the jurisdiction of choice for Asian investors seeking stability, excellence, and opportunity. And we recognize, Madam President, that implementing world-class compliance standards brings growing pains, but compliance is essential for our long-term competitiveness, and our compliance leadership protects every Bahamian's economic future by preserving our access to international financial systems. Sometimes it might seem like a faraway notion when we talk about things like compliance, but the adverse impact of it can be quite severe for the ordinary person. Madam President, we continue to fine-tune our financial services legislation, including revisions to the DARE Act, which strengthens our competitive edge in terms of digital assets regulation, and closes loopholes that could compromise our international standing. And these updates reflect our commitment to maintaining the highest standards in financial services while ensuring our legal framework supports legitimate business activity and innovation. And you might know, Madam President, that recently the United States has passed, or has passed through, I think, the Congress, legislation that would regulate crypto assets. And for a long time, they were not regulated in the U.S. And so they are now beginning their process of regulation. And there's an opportunity, again, for us, Madam President, to collaborate with them in terms of making sure that our regulation is consistent with what they want to do, and opportunities could arise for companies to be resident in the Bahamas. We continue to pursue implementation of our tax residency certificate. We've set up an interministerial committee consisting of the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Department of Immigration, and Department of Inland Revenue, and I think lawyers from the AG's office, working together to serve our clients and strengthen our jurisdiction. And we are looking to bring this initiative to completion. We continue to work with our partners particularly the Bahamas Financial Services Board, Madam President, and they continue to advance their mandate to promote the Bahamas as a premier international financial center through 4 core focus areas: promoting the jurisdiction, regulatory advocacy, industry development, and talent building. And so going out to places like, to have landfall events in places like London, Geneva, Zurich, Miami, and participating in other high-profile conferences like the Trust and Estate Practitioners Conference in Miami, as well as Latin America, the Family Office Investment Summit, World Captive Forum, amongst others, to promote the jurisdiction of the Bahamas as somewhere to do business, as well as regulatory and policy advocacy, working along with the government to make sure that the industry is briefed on the evolution of government policy, and having dialogue with the industry leaders, regulators, and government officials to ensure that we're all on the same page in terms of what regulation serves both objectives of having a properly regulated jurisdiction, but one that remains competitive. Industry development. They've launched the Bahamas Global Wealth Summit as a new flagship event focusing on emerging trends in private wealth management, fintech, and jurisdictional competitiveness. And what's impressed me with this summit, Madam President, is that the amount of Bahamians who are now service providers have their financial and corporate service provider companies, and they're expanding in the area of, particularly family office development. BFSB continues to work with University of Bahamas, the Association of International Banks and Trust Companies, as well as the Bahamas Institute of Financial Services to develop and train young Bahamians in the area of financial services. And moving forward, Madam President, they are very, very keen so they have some key initiatives like closing the data gap so that they can collect, consolidate, and analyze data across the financial services industry so that when decisions are made, they are made not on an anecdotal basis of what someone is saying or who screams the loudest, but based on actual data. Madam President, they intend to complete the brand refresh of the jurisdiction. I guess that's a marketing term, and enhance stakeholder engagement and advocacy, bringing more people forward, those who are in the industry, who work there every day, making sure that if they have an issue, they don't suffer in silence, but bring it to the attention of the government, so that we can make the changes that are necessary in the true spirit of partnership that has existed for a long time between the government and the Bahamas Financial Services Board. Madam President, as I said, Senator Griffin will talk about our trade diversification and economic resilience and some of the activities we are doing in those areas, and as well how that impacts food security. Madam President, we speak in this budget about opportunity. And we've been speaking a lot, many, many years about our major industry and how tourism is the major industry, but the need to have more linkages so that we derive more. Bahamians become not just workers, but they become entrepreneurs and business owners. And through our continued support for the Small Business Development Corporation, our commitment to entrepreneurial empowerment extends to every segment of our society through targeted transformational initiatives. The Entrepreneurs with Disabilities program, it concludes this fiscal year after successfully breaking barriers that prevented this community from launching enterprises, and it was developed in partnership with the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture and the National Disabilities Commission. Fly fishing initiative that I spoke of, and the newly launched Crafting the Bahamas program focuses on authentic Bahamian products and artisans across our archipelago, continuing into the next fiscal year with comprehensive support for creative entrepreneurs. And this initiative showcases the remarkable talent spanning from Grand Bahama to Inagua, ensuring every family island artisan has access to markets that appreciate authentic Bahamian craftsmanship. I spoke about the Tingsy Marketplace, and the SPDC also has implemented a Men in Business program that is a groundbreaking initiative for at-risk young men, and that will continue into the next fiscal year. Now, over the years, SPDC has provided funding for, women entrepreneurs, male entrepreneurs, but this program addresses the specific challenges facing young men in our communities. They employ a partnership approach, working with agencies and nonprofits to provide comprehensive support that transforms lives and strengthens communities. Madam President, the Blue Economy Accelerator provides development through their partnership with the Nature Conservancy and the IDB, positioning the Bahamas as the regional leader in sustainable marine enterprise. Madam President, as well, when we talk about our creatives, the work of the SPDC, dovetails very, very well with the work that is being done in our Orange Economy Unit in terms of promoting our artisans, promoting our performing artists, exposing them to international markets, going to international festivals, etc., and encouraging them to come and have some of those festivals here. The promotion of our Junkanoo culture, but not just Junkanoo, but the whole creative economy that is being led by Angelique McKay, who's here in the audience, and we're very, very excited to build upon some of the initiatives that she has begun and really expand them. Madam President, the Securities Commission of the Bahamas, our securities regulator, again, has been working with the government hand in hand to ensure that our securities legislation is modernized. We have tasked them, for example, we spoke about what they've done with the DARE Act and Investment Funds Act. The government has asked them to look at the area of these non-bank money lenders and come back to us with some suggestions. You know, we have many years ago when you would hear about those payday lenders in the U.S. We didn't have them here. But now it might go by a different name, but essentially they're payday lenders, and unfortunately many Bahamians fall into that net where they're borrowing at extremely high interest rates with very, very little prospect of ever coming out. Madam President, we are working with the Securities Commission we're exploring the implementation of a centralized one-stop shop to streamline approvals and improve coordination across our financial services regulatory agencies. And so the idea is that individuals who want to come and set up financial service companies in the Bahamas should have a one-stop shop where they can be introduced to service providers, products licensing, and as well the approval process, and to identify opportunities for improvement and streamlining. And it's a very ambitious program, but the idea is to have this one-stop shop set up, much like we've seen done in areas like Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, where they really streamline their operations and are able to get applications in and approved in a quick manner by making sure we have more of our regulators really coordinate their activity. You'll hear more about it as we develop it. Going through this fiscal year, Madam President, but we think it's an opportunity for us to really improve our competitiveness. And as part of our broader strategy to diversify and deepen financial services, Madam President, our Director of Financial Services, again, who's here in the audience, Ms. Brandis Duncanson, is working closely with the Securities Commission and the BFSB to establish a framework for family offices, which will encourage more activity in this high-value space and generate spin-off opportunities for Bahamian professionals. It's a real thing, Madam President, when we talk about this segment of the market, where we look to actual more and more Bahamian entrepreneurs with their financial services companies providing this service. Madam President, the Insurance Commission of Bahamas continues to work to enhance their regulatory framework in terms of amendment to the legislation, including the External Insurance Act, where they are putting out the draft proposals for industry consultation, and as well training in terms of AML, anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism, They're doing a lot of work. I was very, very pleased, Madam President, in January of this year, to participate in the launch of the InsurTech Compliance, Innovation, and Regulatory Practices course, ICIRP. It's in collaboration, it's in partnership with the University of Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance and the Bahamas Institute of Financial Services. It's a 6-week training program, and it marked a significant step forward in building future-ready regulatory capacity across the Bahamas and the wider region. There were 60 graduates, and one from Turks and Caicos, so there's a bit of an international flavor there, Madam President. The Commission continues to modernize its practices by the incorporation of modern technology. We often hear, Madam President, that, the captive insurance industry fled in the 70s, I imagine, but the securities industry has not given up. The Insurance Commission of the Bahamas continues to support the growth of the captive insurance market, which has seen steady expansion over the past decade, and efforts are focused on streamlining application processes and maintaining a robust regulatory framework that meets international standards, thereby attracting small to medium-sized enterprises seeking cost-effective risk management solutions. And so what they think is, perhaps with the real big ones, they're entrenched, but there's an opportunity for small to medium-sized enterprises to domicile in the Bahamas. Madam President, the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas is well entrenched in terms of their participation in the International Association of Insurance Supervisors. We are the vice president of the Caribbean Association of Insurance Regulators, and that leadership role enhances the Commission's influence in regional insurance supervision. They're also working with their regional counterparts in any number of cooperation initiatives, including the Bermuda Monetary Authority through an information sharing agreement where we have staff of the Insurance Commission of Bahamas on secondment with the Bermuda Regulatory Authority, gaining practical exposure to innovation and supervisory, some innovative regulatory and supervisory framework. And of course, we know that that experience across the border will enhance their professionalism. Madam President, some future outlook and key initiatives for the Insurance Commission. They will continue to expand their supervisory reach, accelerating digital transformation, and deepening the resilience of this sector. And they're moving into some new offices very soon as a result of the expansion of their head count. Madam President, as we approach the final year of this term, we remain as committed to working on behalf of the Bahamian people as we were on day one. By any objective measure, we have achieved success on many levels. We've seen consecutive years of economic growth, unemployment at its lowest level since 2008. We are projecting the first ever overall budget surplus in an independent Bahamas. A first-time initiative like the school breakfast program, the National Youth Guard, and Upskill are critical investments in people. We are making historic investment in infrastructure, especially in our family islands, and investors have responded with over $12 million in investments and billions more in the pipeline. If you compare where we are today with where we were 4 years ago, there can be no denial of progress. If we were to ask the average Bahamian that classic question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? I have no doubt that the answer would be a resounding yes.
Yes, sir. You were under curfew.
We have had our challenges, of course, Madam President, but by no means are we perfect. And we still have a very long way to go to get to where we need to be. But the nation is headed in the right direction. Progress is apparent everywhere we look. But the Bahamian people should stay tuned, because we are just getting started as we lay the foundation for the next 5, 10, 20, and 50 years of growth with our blueprint for change. Madam President, it is my pleasure to open this debate with full support of the 2025-2026 budget and the transformative agenda of the Davis administration. And so, Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st July 2025 and ending 30th of June 2026. I so move, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis, for your contribution and for the opening of the 2025-2026 budget debate under the theme Building Island by Island? Yes. Building, pardon me? Building Opportunities Island by Island. Is there a seconder for the debate? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable James Roll Turner. Senator, you have the floor.
Thank you and good morning, Madam President. You know, God has a way of taking care of his people. When I came in here, I'll tell you something. I was speaking with my middle brother, and he was saying, you remember when we were small, we used to go by Mama, and sometimes she used to send you in the yard and tell you go weed. And I say, yeah. I say, yeah. He said, boy, he said, remember she told you? I said, yeah. But he said, because sometimes I look at you all in the Senate and I wonder how you cope with some of those people in there. And I said to him, I said, you remember, you see, when she sent us to weed, shepherd's needle, it used to be sticky. But I say that's like some of the folks in the Senate. You get used to them because we later learned that our favorite tea, which is chamomile, is shepherd's needle. So nowadays, we don't weed shepherd's needle, we clip it because we boil it. And then when I came in here, Madam President, I got to tell you there's something different about you today. There really is. There's a different type of glow in here. I got to tell you, no, I mean, give me a moment, you know, because I looked to my left and then I saw another beauty, you know, another gorgeous rose, right? And then across the table from me, I saw 3 other roses. And I got to tell you, you know, listen, man, when I look hard to my right, I saw a sea of roses. So I got to tell you, hey, so I want to tell all of my folks in Grand Bahama that God is telling us that everything is going to be all right. It's good, though, to see all of the senators here. It's a wonderful thing that we have not lost one senator since we've begun. So certainly God has been good to us. These are exciting times because long of the days past when we spoke only of the nation's capital. But now we look at what's happening all around the Bahamas because there's a great value in understanding and ensuring that every Bahama island plays a part in the growth of the islands of the Bahamas. This budget 2025-2026 focuses on expanding opportunities island by island. None of us will be left behind. And I know this is important because whether you are from Grand Bahama, whether you're from Andros, Abaco, Bimini, Eleuthera, Exuma, Long Island, Ragged Island, Inagua, even New Providence, Chubkey and the Berry Islands, no matter where you're from in the islands of the Bahamas, you want to make sure that you are included. I met an old lady when I was doing some walking, knocked on the door, and she took a little while to come to the door, and I thought, well, maybe, you know, I shouldn't be to this door. But after a while, she came to the door, she opened the door, and she said, boy, come in. And I must admit, I have not been called boy for a long time. So I looked at the guy who was walking with me, and he said, you know, he said, You know, he did like that. So I said, well, let's go. We stepped inside, and she said, oh, Mr. Turner, Grand Bahama finally has a hero. So I looked at him and said, hero? I wouldn't, I wasn't sure. So she looked at me and she said, H-E-R-O. So I said, oh, hero. She said, yeah. And she said, I want you to know that I am so pleased with what this Bahamian Prime Minister doing all over the Bahamas and what he's doing for Grand Bahama. It is wonderful. And I looked at her and I said, Mama, you are so right. But I want to tell you here today that I join her in those sentiments, because what this Prime Minister and this team of Bahamians are doing for the Bahamas is nothing short of magnificent. I know some of you may look and say, these folks from these family of islands, they're a little bit different. But when you have gone through the storms, through the wind, and through the rain, and you still stand, and the future looks bright, you got to be able to say things are a whole lot better now. The Bahamian people understand the challenges and the stresses, domestic and internationally, that we face, but we are very clear that we only want progress for this nation that we love. I suppose I don't speak for everyone, but I can speak for many when I say that when a man or a woman gives you their word of commitment, can keep their word, even put it in writing and still keep their word, this is a good thing. I can recall when this government began campaigning before the elections, they put it in writing. They presented a blueprint for change that says, here is where I propose to take you. You could choose, you ain't had to come, but here is where I propose to take you. Many of us looked at it and decided this looks like somewhere we want to go. But like I tell you, when someone makes their commitment and put it in writing and give it to you and keep it, it is a wonderful thing. This is why we are not surprised by the success we are experiencing, because we are simply pleased with the progress that we see today. Budget 2025-26 builds on the foundation of what was already established and carries on with the things that were working from previous budgets. Despite the challenges of the past years, we continue to advance with a renewed sense of optimism on Grand Bahama, because we move with a government that has the interests of these islands clearly at the center of its plans. This budget speaks of several things. And over the years, I've seen a lot of poetry, and I accept some of it for what it is. But let me tell you, when we speak of safe, affordable food and food security, that affects all of us. Yes. When we speak of private sector investments all over our islands, that affects all of us. When we speak of ensuring that all Bahamians benefit, that affects all of us. We are witnessing the strengthening of the public service all over the Bahamas, and that affects all of us. I got to tell you, I'm delighted to hear that we're heading towards a budget surplus, and that affects all of us. All of this, and all of this affects all of us positively, Madam President. Madam President, over the past recent years, I've heard a lot said about government's travel commitments. But please allow me to say to those that seem to be troubled by family islanders to relax. Take it easy. Retreat to your safe zone if you need to do that. I saw the Bahamas, all of the Bahamas, being actively promoted. I saw investment opportunities being created. I now see new jobs. I see new opportunities. I see the rebounding of Grand Bahama on the horizon. These global travels have brought opportunities back to Grand Bahama. These opportunities have allowed families that were split up, looking for jobs all over the place, to return home and be reunited on Grand Bahama Island. These opportunities have allowed men to stand like men, because when you cannot stand and care for your family, it's a very different feeling for a man. When you're a single mother and you are without a job, it's a different feeling when you look at your children. But oh, when you can look at them in the eye and you know that you can put food on the table. When you know that you have a paycheck coming. When you know that you can put gas in the car. You know that you can pay the school fees. You know you can help your sister and you can help your brother. You can help your mother and you can help others who are having a difficult time. You know, it's a good time to say you're a Bahamian. This is what the global travel has allowed us on Grand Bahama to speak of. You all know the story of the Lukaya Hotel, the saga, all of that. We all know that. But I tell my friends, man, I say, let bygones be bygones. Good days are ahead for us. We see what is happening. The hotel is sold. We know the developments that are coming there. Yeah, we wish it all would manifest yesterday, but it's coming. It is coming. I reminded some Nassauvians there was a whole heap of trouble in Nassau not so long ago with that whole Bahama project. But look what happened there. All of us are celebrating today. So what I say to you is the same aura that was presented in Cable Beach, allow that aura to be presented in Grand Bahama. We know that with what will be presented, we know that what will be presented in Lukaya, it will change the whole face of tourism in Grand Bahama. This is what global travel has afforded us. So how dare one speak ill of global travel when it affects family islanders positively? When one speaks ill of it, it could suggest to us that you don't like family islanders. But God forbid, because it is the diversification in the islands of the Bahamas that makes us an awesome destination prospect as the Bahamas. These relationships, these type relationships built from foreign travel could not have been adequately done by emails. I support this budget. And I mean, I support this budget because I saw earlier presentations of many firsts. First, National Youth Guard. First, breakfast in all public schools. First, free Wi-Fi in the parks. First, Golden Yoke program. First, real effort to diversify trade for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And it couldn't come at a better time. This is the first government to stand up to the Grand Bahama Port Authority in a meaningful way and remind all of everyone's obligations to Freeport and the residents of Freeport Lukaya. Madam President, I don't need to hang around the Ministry of Economic Affairs to know that the economy is expanding. I'm from Grand Bahama, where I've been through so many storms that I know what contraction feels like. So I can tell you this is a whole different feeling now. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, indeed. You know, I speak with my fellow business persons and mothers and fathers and people all over the island, new and existing entrepreneurs. And we talk about what we see on the horizon. And there was a time when all of the conversations was really structured around survival, structured around not laying off and how do we cut back and how. But now that's not the conversation today. The conversation today is about preparing for the future, making sure that we take advantage of the opportunities that lie ahead. There is an aura of enthusiasm that has returned to Grand Bahama that I hadn't seen for a long time. So I know that something good is about to happen. Tourism. The goose that has laid and continues to lay the golden eggs for this country is doing well. The Bahamas still remains ahead of all of those south of us that are boasting of all kinds of things by the numbers. Senator Russell and I came on a flight today with a Jamaican gentleman that spent a lot of time in the Bahamas. Oh, he boasts of this, he boasts of that, he boasts of all kinds of things. I was just about to ask him who was the regional leader when he said, but you know, China, the Bahamas still in the lead. So it tells us that you're doing something right, because even the enemy is saying you're doing something right. I take note, no, I'm talking about those south of us.
Stay focused on this.
I take note that in the past, listen, I take note, Grand Bahama. Madam President, I want you to give this message to my Grand Bahamians from me. I take note that in the past 2 years, more than $10 billion in foreign direct investments has occurred. Now, I know about Rosewood, Park Hyatt, Margaritaville, Four Seasons, and some other things. But, Madam President, I thank God more today for Concord, Wiltshire, the new owners of the Grand Lukaya Beach Resort, because that affects the people dear to us. Coming soon is new jobs, more jobs. new restaurants, new attractions, new golf courses, new marina, new guests, more guests are coming. When I say, oh, Kirky, what a good feeling, eh? Oh, man, listen, it's good to be back. Madam President, oh, how it feels good to be moving in the right direction on Grand Bahama. We know if God allows, we're going to cut a whole lot of ribbons. But this is going to be very soon, because we know in a matter of weeks, there will be dancing, there will be singing, because Celebration Key will be welcoming their first guests in a matter of weeks. We are so grateful for this, because this is another foundational element in restoring Grand Bahama's economy in a positive way. As I looked through the budget items, I saw subsidies primarily to some non-financial public corporations that grew a bit. But I have no issue with this because education is important. And in this allocation, I saw contributions to the University of the West Indies totaling $5.9 million, scholarships and grants, some $30 million, amounts to independent schools for about $12.6 million, and the University of the Bahamas getting some $22.7 million. Those are all only investments in a better future for our young people primarily, and I am always pleased to see progress in education. And as such, I must commend those associated with the Ministry of Education for the great work they are doing and continue to do. I tell them, you know, we are quick to beat up on people all the time. But for those at the Ministry of Education, I want you to know that your minister is a woman that continues to do the work for the people. Madam President, we have many critics in the international community. But this afternoon, we know that for the first time in about 17 years, Moody's upgraded its outlook for the Bahamas from stable to positive. This, in and of itself, should be cause for us to take note and congratulate all of those associated with this. So often, we hear folks speaking of responsible fiscal management, transparency. But here we are with the results of such behavior by our government being undisputable, and it is worth celebrating. I am pleased when all of the Bahamas does well, because we have folks almost everywhere in our country. But let me just say again that this is family island development and advancement time like never seen before. I was recently in Bimini, Mr. Biminite. I was recently in Bimini, and you know, I speak with the representative all the time of that area, and he's a good man, the MP for Western and Bimini. I saw in Bimini roadworks. Roadworks advancing all over the place. I went by the George Weeks building complex, and man, the George Weeks building looking good. Then I came back to Grand Bahama. I said, well, you know, maybe he neglected some other portions. But I went down by Sunset Village. I saw they got brand new restrooms looking like they belong in an airport. I saw the technology upgrades at the Western School, and we all know that sometimes you just have to be ready just in case. Well, I also saw at the 8 Mile Rock Gym that it has been retrofitted. Should the need arise for a shelter in the time of storm, the people of West Grand Bahama have a decent location to go to. So I said to myself, man, this government is really working. But even in an era where housing presentations are on the move in the nation's capital, Grand Bahama has not been left behind. This budget period speaks of presenting 20 affordable homes in the West End and advancing very soon with affordable housing in Freeport as well. Madam President, I say again via your presence to my beloved fellow Grand Bahamians, yes, Grand Bahamians, it is good to be included. Madam President, on Grand Bahama nowadays, from the Ministry of Grand Bahama, I also enjoy, and I like what I hear them saying. I always tell people, you know, when they talk their nonsense, I say, Minister Moxie is one of us, and we take care of her. She is one of us. But because of these budgets, they reminded us that unemployment on Grand Bahama is not as harsh today as it once was some time ago. We are all grateful for the beautiful Grand Bahama program and the Ministry of Finance, because at a time when immediate help was required, These budgets allowed many of our people to restore their dignity in a time of need and crisis. And for that, we ought to continue to say thank you to the Minister of Finance and his team. Thank you to the Minister of Grand Bahama and her teams. We now take comfort. You remember I told you we can be cutting all kind of ribbon all over Grand Bahama? We now take comfort that our hospital construction phase 1 is expected to be presented the end of this year. You know when we initially began talking about it about 2 years, a little over 2 years ago, it seemed so far away. But I'm telling you, hope is alive and hope is well in Grand Bahama, because very soon we will be presenting that element of our hospital facility. These budgets are a good thing. We all know the stories of folks now returning, primarily from the United States, Nassau and Bimini, returning to be gainfully employed back home. That's a good thing. These budgets have allowed us to celebrate our almost completely rebuilt stores at the Arts and Crafts Center. And you know, sometimes, I know most of the senators here somewhat well, and I know that many of you live in lofty quarters. You enjoy the good life. You know, I know that, and that's good. That's good, because God reigns on the just and the unjust. But there are some people, when you go to some of the straw markets, the Arts and Crafts Center. I mean, if I don't have a specific reason to go to the straw market, I generally don't go there. You know, I spend more time past by Kentucky maybe, right? But there are some people whose livelihood is affixed to these Arts and Crafts Centers. I spoke to a lady who told me she put 3 children through university from the straw market. From the straw market. So when I see that our arts and crafts facility has been restored when I drive by, man, listen, an element of joy comes in my heart, because I know what that thing has done for so many Bahamians. Is that a real job? Oh, yes, it is. These budgets are a good thing. We also learned from these budget presentations that the new aquatic center at the Grand Bahama Sports Club is now underway. The Bahamas dominates in swimming. You know, we don't say Nassau dominate. We don't say Exuma dominate. We don't say Keda. We say the Bahamas. So some of that talent got to come from Grand Bahama. With the presentation, with the presentation of that new aquatic center, you know what's going to happen? My, what a time it is. I'll be remiss if I didn't say thank you to the Minister of Youth and Culture for their efforts in ensuring that Grand Bahama rises again. Because I know while things doth flow with milk and honey in Nassau, sometimes we forget outside of there. But we see that the family of islands are being cared for. You know, Madam President, it is good to be able to smile, exhale, even laugh now and then, nowadays. So much of the stress on these islands are alleviated by these good budgets. These budgets are live and meaningful documents. These budgets affect so many agencies and individuals. In this era of my life, I have spent so much time going to these different government agencies. And most of the times, when I'm going to these government agencies, it ain't got nothing to do with my business. But somebody is called because they can't reach somebody. But if you go, somebody will help them, right? I ought to say something to you. I ought to firstly continue to thank the Prime Minister and his team for the good works that they're doing. On Grand Bahama Island, I ought to thank some specific folks. I ought to say thank you to the Bahamas Customs Department, because I know what they go through when folks are returning home with all sorts of stuff, but claiming only to have $10. But yet these officers allow these people to maintain their dignity and go about their business and taking care of their families. So I got to publicly say thank you to them. And then to the Bahamas Immigration Department. You know, it is a good thing to be watchful, and they continue to be watchful throughout the islands. Thank you to the Royal Bahamas Police Force, because I am so happy that in Grand Bahama, prevention is better than cure. I look at some places south of us, and I am really concerned. Thank you to the Royal Bahamas Defense Force for taking care of the borders. Our waters are beautiful. The aura of the Bahamas is mesmerizing, but we know that we ought to be careful as we protect the borders. I've worked with members of the Hotel Corporation, and I ought to say thank you to them too for being so helpful over the last few years. Thank you to the road traffic officers and the National Insurance Board teams. Thank you to the affiliates of the Grand Bahama Health Services, because there's nothing like going into the emergency area and getting attention fairly quickly. Thank you to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Renewal teams. I joke with Senator Russell all the time, and I tell him, I say, when I show up at his office, I say, boy, one of these days I can just show up here just to see how you're doing. But unfortunately, that ain't today. I came for something, because there's always a need that you have to touch with urban renewal on. I say thank you again to those at the Ministry of Grand Bahama. Thank you to the Ministry of Education on our island. Thank you to the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources. I also say thank you to the Grand Bahama Port Authority for what you are doing and what you are about to do. Thank you to the entire clergy on Grand Bahama Island, because I must say, and I say this personally, that we are witnessing before our very eyes that indeed prayer does change things. And to the fine folks at the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas, 3 years ago I used to tell them when I see my friends here, I said, listen, man, your job ain't only to cover crime, you know. There's some other stories that you ought to be telling folks about. But they have done an excellent job, because no one covers the Northern Bahamas like the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. Madam President, I am pleased with the budget presentation as provided. When I reflect on where we were 4 years ago and where we are today, I am pleased. When I reflect on where we are today and where we propose to go, I am pleased. As such, I do stand, support, and second this presentation of the Budget 2025-2026. Thank you, Madam President, and may God Almighty continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Senator James Earl Turner, for your contribution to the budget debate. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st of July 2025 and ending the 30th of June 2026. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Abonnet Ellis. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, as we are approaching the 1 o'clock hour, I would like for us to take the luncheon break now so that we do not break in the middle of the Honorable Senator's presentation. But before I do that, Madam President, I neglected to say when I was speaking about the securities market and securities commission that they're celebrating their 30th anniversary this year. And we had the opportunity to attend church with them last week, Thursday, and as well a reception on Friday. And I just want to congratulate them on... I missed the lunch. To congratulate them on achieving 30 years and to encourage them. It was such a pleasure to see all the staff there. They even had a combo bel canto singers, Securities Commission chorale singing during the church service. But it's just a pleasure to see young and old, particularly many young people at the commission who are benefiting from the opportunity and the training. And they're doing a wonderful job and on the cutting edge, representing us well. So I just wanted to say that about them and wish them well as they embark on the next 30 years. And so, Madam President, with that, I move that the business of the Senate do suspend until 3 p.m. this afternoon.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis. Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate is suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon. As many are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The business of the Senate stands suspended until 3 p.m. on the 23rd of June, 2025.
A blessed good morning, honorable members, and those under the sound of my voice. For this is the day the Lord has made. Let us